This episode contains language that is not suitable for minors. Please enjoy responsibly. And now, today's episode.
Hello and welcome to The Beatdown. This is episode 48. I'm your host, Tony. I'm joined by my two pals, Chris Hewlin and John Rosso. And away we go.
Hey,
now you guys
Tony.
can...
Happy Thanksgiving, by the way.
Hey,
I hope
thank
I'm
you.
not dating the show.
Yeah. That was everybody's weekend.
Very good. Very good. How about you, Chris?
Festively, I'm still giving thanks. Thanks. I'm glad to be here with you guys tonight.
Yeah.
Nice.
Nice.
And,
My entire family got together for the first time in
All right.
about 6 years. Like all my brothers and sisters and my brother and sisters.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been a while with my mom down in Virginia. So that was highlight.
Nice.
Well, actually, just sort of kick into things. So last night, I went to this. I guess it was. It's not a musical. I went to this play at Playwrights Horizon, which is an off-Broadway theater on 42nd Street. And the music was written by Will. No, I'm going to forget his name. The butler, the front guy from Arcade Fire.
Oh, okay.
Wrote the music for it. And it's essentially the recording of Rumors by Fleetwood Mac. So it's they're not mentioned, but you're in a recording studio for 3 hours, and it's a British drummer, a British bass player, a British keyboard player, and two Americans,
From California.
vocalist, and it's literally like they're pulling some of the exact anecdotes out of the Rumors thing, but it was really good. I was very impressed.
Are they playing any of their music or
No, it's all
original
songs
stuff.
by Will
Yeah.
Butler. But
neat.
in that vein,
In that vein,
it's,
sure.
it's in that vein. It's to a certain it's actually I would prefer it in some cases. But it's those harmonies were really big on it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's them it's over a course of a year, and you're just in the recording studio the whole time, and there's drug use and fighting between the couples, but it's called Stereophonic. It just started running at the very end of October, and it's an limited run to the middle of December, and it's like totally sold out. I'm not quite sure where it goes from there. Like, I don't think they extend a run in a place like that, so it probably potentially works towards Broadway, or I don't know if I don't know if things then go to like the public theater with Joe Papp and stuff like that, but I could see it really taking off. Like it was pretty cool. I was very impressed. It was a lot about intergender relationships and power struggles, and I was very impressed with it. The New York Times raved about it about 2 weeks ago, so I grabbed tickets right away, and it was quite good. So
I'm going to take this moment to shout out to say what an awesome guitar player Lindsey Buckingham is, and I don't think he shows up on a lot of these top 150s or top 10.
He's inventive for sure. It's very melodic. But what was cool about the show? So the band sings and plays live. Like they're great actors.
Wow,
and amazing singers. Like they were, they don't sound like Broadway singers kind of thing. They're actually, they're actually recreating like someone struggling to like get a take right too, and then kills a note. It's just like wow. Like it was very, very impressive. And I'm someone who like just thinks of everything about being in a band or making an album is so friggin' cliche, and they really nailed it.
Yeah. Do we know if any of the the Fleetwood Mac people know about this or upset it or signed off on it, or are they?
I've heard it's just no one uttered the words in any way. The New York Times said, it seems to reference the Fleetwood Mac history. But remember, there was a whole other thing called like Daisy Jones or something that was like thing that's totally also like is the corny cliche version. The one with the Stevie Nicks character is played by Elvis Presley's granddaughter.
Oh sure,
and she was actually kind of the best part of that. But
I didn't see any episodes of that. Yeah.
Shout out to that one, but so wanted to drop
That's
that.
That's kind of cool. Elvis Presley's granddaughter, Lisa Marie's daughter.
Yes, exactly.
Nick
Keough.
Cage's daughter? Who's the dad?
Good question. I don't know.
I'm sure that's being argued.
It's not Michael Jackson.
Yeah, it's in an entirely other podcast that they're going off on.
But her last name is Keough, Koeghh.
Oh, it was Danny Noonan.
Is that who it
I
is?
think it was Danny Noonan.
Danny Noonan.
It could be
Could be.
that guy. Right.
Well, I don't know if I should mention this, but I thought of this today, I guess. The Nightmare Before Christmas, that was never made into a Broadway musical or some kind of musical.
What?
We got a new
What's the
segment
what?
going. It's Broadway.
Yeah,
Broadway down.
I mean, it was a movie. I don't know if they made it a musical. I mean,
Well, I'm putting it on tape because when somebody finally gets their act together
Oh my
over at
God.
Disney, I'm going to get credit for coming up with the idea. How is that not a
that's
Broadway
exactly what
musical?
you'll get. I can imagine that might be a very expensive show to put on, but and
Disney.
also, does it run in July? But it would be more of a Radio City Music Hall thing for a couple of weeks. But Chris, I was wondering, have you at least thumbed through or seen that Paul McCartney lyric book? That was, I want to say it was like one of those.
One that you mentioned earlier.
Well,
That one.
not on the show, yeah.
Well, I know.
But I didn't ask that. Have you thumbed through it or anything? It's like this big, expensive, stupid book.
No, I have not looked through that one. And but it's new too, right? It just came out, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, they always drop something big and expensive before Christmas, so it was
Good
definitely
point.
Christmas last year, if not 2 years ago.
You know what? I didn't even get far enough into it, John, to know. Okay, so what's the pitch? Like, how are they going to hook me, the Beatle fan,
So right, it's
the jaded Beatle fan?
Well, I
How's
think
that
it's
gonna-
like there's like a fancy double, fancy bound book of like X
fancy bound books do not interest
I know,
me.
hold on, I know, but I'm getting to the point. And so they had the lyrics, and then Paul tells the story of each one of the songs, right? And it's not just scrambled eggs.
Oh my God!
But
it could be torture. It could be great.
Well,
right.
So where I was going through it is, so now that the book has been out and sold, by the way, his new book is The Photographs, right? His mediocre photography that he, him taking the pictures of people running down the street after him in 1965,
Because his brother was the photographer.
Was the actual photographer.
and
His books are, Mike McCartney's books
had to-
are really expensive. They're beautiful though.
Mike McCartney, I went and saw one of his shows like in the 80s and got to shake his hand and had a smile with him. And that was nice. I was thrilled to meet Paul McCartney's brother.
Well, it's cool. He's got that famous early shot of the three of them like drunk at like a sister's party or something like that.
But like all those ones in the back garden and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
Of just like early, like, like fresh faced boys
like
in the
greasers
garden.
too. Yeah.
They had a cool look.
Yeah. But they so the recordings that the interviews they did, there's a poet who was the guy who was like the editor of this book, interviews Paul, and so now they've carved it up into like 20-minute podcasts about a song or two each time, right? And so they've been popping up and I've been listening. So it's actually Paul talking rather than someone writing it down to like
So
the
this is something that has been transcribed from multiple sources then, like him telling a story about the song. Is that what you're saying?
It's the only source is Paul's words.
Right.
Yeah,
But
so it's not
coming
multiple
from
sources.
various times though, like when he's told story.
Nope. He sat down for hours talking to this guy, going through this, and the guy's a poet. Like he's like a well-known, scholarly poet and who's published and so he's working with Paul on these. So now they've published the tapes of him doing the interviews, and they've carved them down into the so like I pop them in for 20 minutes on my commute or whatever, and and then it's a lot of it's like, I heard that story before. This is he does live and live, but the most recent one they did was Magical Mystery Tour, and I've never really heard of, like, I don't even know if I would pick that as a song to go, oh, how'd you write that one? But the thing that really caught me was
a rocking song, by the way, John, that is always underrated. Like,
the drumming's not a kill. Yeah,
I love to hear that song. Every time it comes on, I'm happy to hear it.
And it's like 2 chords and all drums. It's like the vocal and drums. Is that, those vocals and the drums.
When
and
they hit that break where it goes, the magic! Oh my God! Like, it's ecstasy. It's so great.
So that song. It was funny. The guy brought it up. He's like, you did that song right at the same time that "Haha, They're Coming to Take Me Away" by Napoleon the 13th came out. And I never thought about, the Magical Mystery Tour. We're coming to take you away. And I always thought it was an interesting double entendre that, like, oh, they're going to take you away. But I never even put into my brain the connection that it was, oh, you know what? Ha 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 ha, they're coming to take me away is actually one of the inspirations for the song. Because
I didn't realize that it was an inspiration for the song, but it was always trippy, and there was also the Vietnam thing too, that, like, early on I had read enough of the early, combat books about Vietnam, where the guys would sing that as like a trippy, it's one of those black humor kind of things.
On the Magical Mystery Tour.
Got it. You know, so it's there was always a twinge of darkness to it to me.
Well, it's also, the whole Magical Mystery Tour movie always kind of creeped me out. Just even before I saw it, it was just like, even the pictures in the album, it was like, who are these people? Why are they shoveling spaghetti? Why are they going?
Yeah, you're right.
It was trippy. It was kind of like circus freaks, and why is the color is kind of pallid. And I remember there's that picture of John Lennon in the watching the movie, so you're just getting the reflection of the screen on it, and it's just like he's pale and unhealthy. It was just so un-Beatles like. But they told the story about how there was actually Magical Mystery Tours in Liverpool, and it would be like a cheap way. They wouldn't tell you where you were going, and usually they took you to Blackpool, and you saw the Blackpool lights, and it was like a day, and you returned. They put you on the coach. They didn't tell you where you were going, but that 90% of the time, that's where you ended up. And it's funny because it came up at the same time that I was listening to this. It comes up in the Mal Evans, the new Mal Evans book that came up, talking about Mal and his niece would, we're going to go on the Magical Mystery Tour today,
So he had actually done it. It's funny because it did beg that question. Did any of them ever do it? Was it like, was it around early enough that, like, Paul McCartney, like, their family would have done that sort of thing? Gotcha.
Absolutely. It seemed like it'd been going for years. Like, it was something. It was a poor person's holiday because it didn't take a lot of time. You didn't have to take up time off work.
Because I never heard John Lennon talk,
he was
and we ended out on the
Mimi probably wouldn't let him.
The World Peninsula,
Yeah. Well, right, John they would do hitchhiking rather than that, but
maybe it was too working class for Mimi,
Yeah, absolutely. And then in the other part part of the sinister part too is that, right, the magical, it's like the way the refrain goes, it's like, we'd love to take you. It's like we how does it advance? Right? It's we're coming to. It's we're hoping we'd love to take you away, and then we're dying to take you away. Like, each time it kind of escalates.
Yeah.
And finally, we're dying to take you away. Dude, Chris, what are the? There's like 4 of them, and I can't remember them. But it's like.
I'm going
the Magical Mystery Tour is coming to take you away. Coming to take you away. The Magical Mystery Tour is it's dying to take you away.
Take you today, yeah. But that's what. Yeah,
dying to take you away.
We're gonna have to pay for it if you keep singing it. So.
Right.
But anyway, I just thought that was really. I never really heard him talk to that. Then the only other time. How Paul does these secret shows every now and then, like, usually around another event. So remember they had, like, what they call old Cella, where it was like Stones and Paul McCartney and Roger Waters doing the Wall and right. And so there's a small little, like, it's on the club tour thing, but it's in the middle of nowhere in California. But it's like, it's where someone like the Jicks would play, or like a lot of the indie bands would like the bands that would play in Brooklyn at like the bigger places would play this place. So McCartney does a surprise set there, and a friend of mine was there, and he sends me. He's like, I can't believe I'm here, and it's like, it's a place that holds 100 people, and he's got his iPhone sends me, and he opens with Magical Mystery Tour, and you're just like, wow, that would be a really good moment.
Yeah,
yep.
yeah. And that drummer,
his drummer too.
His drummer that he plays with just kills it. He is awesome.
What do you think? So right, we're dating the episode. It is Thanksgiving weekend 2023, and
we celebrate it too.
Like, where do you think Paul McCartney was this weekend?
Good question. Where
do you think he was in the Hamptons? Do you think he was in New York City?
I don't know. He's probably with Mike Riley on the islands.
Down in St. Parts.
Yeah, right. He seems to be there a bit.
I don't know. He's sentimental, and his wife's an American, so he might have been like, doing the,
True, but that's what I keep.
I gotta be out on Long Island somewhere.
But hearing these interviews, right? He's all of the homes you hear about where he's been, like he still has them all. Like, so he talks about how he still has the
Cavendish,
Scotland.
Right? It still is there.
Yes,
like you can go St. John's Woods, Right?
Yeah, it seems like he didn't, like after 1968, it's just he added homes. He didn't
Agreed. I think you're right.
Yeah, because he has the townhouse on like 54th Street, and I think he actually lives on the Upper West Side.
Did I read that Yoko put the Dakota up for sale? Is she divesting herself of that entirely?
I have not heard that. I thought I might have saw that somewhere. See, to me, that would make the local news, like meaning it would be on the nightly news, probably be on the national news. It's such a famous
think, and yet I thought I saw it and kind of came and went off of my radar.
Maybe you're ahead of the curve here on this one, Chris. We'll hear about it in a few weeks. What do
you think? I think we should do a fundraiser. We should buy it. We should do the beat up in there.
Yeah, we'll just open up the accounts.
You only can imagine, like, not only is it not multiple apartments, but it's like John Lennon and Yoko Ono's, like it's like a museum,
Right?
Yeah. And it's like, who the markup on that alone is pretty crazy.
And the investment payoff that they made they're in there in the 70s and to now. Wow, New York.
And they would buy other apartments there. Like there was one apartment that was just like Yoko's art studio.
Oh my God. Yeah. Those are great investments
too. Like first we got everything on the top floor. Then I think they just started getting more and more.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what? Good for them. Whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Good for Sean.
Yeah. Agreed. I think last week when you were going through Sean Lennon stuff, Chiba Mato, he dated the girl from Chiba Mato, and I forgot to bring this up at the time, but yeah, I saw them in Atlanta, and he was playing bass, I believe.
Yeah. With Chiba Mato,
with one of those clubs in East Atlanta, one of those small clubs.
Mm-hmm. Is he a good bass player? He's he's listed as a multi-instrumentalist.
Yeah.
I don't remember it. It didn't draw my attention. Their songs don't have the most complicated bass lines.
He was definitely comparable. They played. I like Chiba Mato. I thought they sounded great when I saw them. Enjoyed it.
Yeah.
That was an added bonus of all the times I've ever been at a show in New York, and he was in the audience with us. To see him play was nice.
Not to float back too much to last episode, but in the interview I heard with Les Claypool, he said he had asked him one time about since your father died at such a young age of yours, who was like a father figure to you? And he said, completely not, like name dropping or anything. He's like, oh, that's a good question. I guess it was either David Bowie or Andy Warhol.
Wow.
Yeah. And I just thought about both of them being in his life. Yeah.
Wowie.
Yeah. So those were the New Yorkers.
But Andy Warhol doesn't have long to live. Like, is he dead late 88, 89?
Yeah, something like that. Like it's mid 80s. Yeah.
Yeah,
but so, I mean, it's still
like you're like I don't know. I guess I'm rooting for Bowie. You know,
that's what
he's saying both, but that he was close to both of them. You know,
gotcha.
that much.
Right. Yeah. Well, fair enough. Right.
I find it. You know, I think when you throw those two names out, it's like I want to believe like David Bowie is more of a father figure, and I don't know. I just can't imagine Andy Warhol being like, make sure you're studying.
But you could see. Like, you know, Warhol, you know, Yoko's an artist. I mean, right? And like, they're friendly. They're in, you know, it's like.
I have no doubt he was in and out of their lives and
There's
stuff.
There's pictures of Lennon like kissing Warhol and stuff like that. And it's a great shot. You've seen it, I'm sure. But I didn't know that they were. That's John right, and Dave were like, you know, or that John and Andy were. That
Sean.
That tight, you know, and unless it became like, you know, after John's passing, that you know,
I think that was
for those 9 years tops.
So Warhol died in 87.
87.
So
dead.
Sean's 12, right? Maybe not quite 12,
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm just thinking father figure. It's just like he's 12. You know, it's just like. That's why I'm thinking Bowie is that like has a longer trajectory.
Well, but you're. That's what I think. I mean, you're probably. I think when you're thinking probably till 18 kind of thing, right? Like he's still. But as a kid, you know, when you're a kid, when you're like essentially zero independence, like Warhol's coming by or they're going. He's being, you know, he's
right.
And remember, Warhol doesn't have a day job. You know, whereas Bowie it's during the overlap we're talking about is, you know, Let's Dance time when it's probably his busiest time for a long time. You know, he's doing world tours. He has a couple big hit demanding records. So maybe they don't overlap at all, you know?
I thought for sure before you said the names, it was going to be Stephen Jobs. Because he was
a guitarist on the Let's Dance tour.
I don't know who's on the tour, but it's
Stevie Ray Vaughan was, I thought, on the tour.
Is it Stevie Ray Vaughan on that tour, or is it Peter Frampton on that tour?
Peter Frampton is the Glass Spider tour,
right?
Late 80s. This is like the Modern Love tour, and the producer on the record is Nile Rodgers. Mm-hmm. And Stevie Ray Vaughan only plays the solo on the song Let's Dance. He is not. He kind of shows up. He plays the solo. Like he's not like it's Nile Rodgers' record kind of through and through. It's almost like Nile Rodgers did the record and Bowie like did the melodies and lyrics. You know.
But I thought, and if memory serves correct, I thought I heard was that you got to, you know, Bowie's on tour. You got to see this new guitar player he's got. He's phenomenal. He's like Jimi Hendrix.
Are we going back to Tin Machine? And
no.
Rabel or whatever.
No, that's after.
I know. I'm talking about Stevie Ray Vaughan. I thought he also went on tour with them. And it, you know, I know he toured for years with.
I thought he was on tour with them. I thought he was the touring guitar player.
Yeah, I thought as well as Carlos Alomar.
I think you're right. I thought I remember that from when I was a kid, John.
Yeah,
and you're right because that's like 82.
Right around that period.
His guitar player was his always touring guitar player, Earl Slick.
Damn, you're right.
Does Carlos go out on the road?
Carlos more of a studio guy with him. Actually, during this time, Carlos is with Iggy.
Oh, neat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Doesn't Carlos have a moment with John
Carlos
Lennon too?
Alomar. We're talking. Yes, the
right. Carlos has a moment with John Lennon where he's just like, "Can you handle?" Like it's that movie, The Wonders. Hey, can you handle the bass lick on this? Da 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 da. And like Alomar does something, and John's like, "Okay, so anyway, like no problem. Just you know, whatever." So, it was one of those. Yeah, I can handle it.
So I'm gonna do my cheat here, and this is the thing about rehearsals and the musicians on the tour. Bowie used the musicians he's newly collaborated with on Let's Dance, along with some longer-standing collaborators. So Carlos Alomar is actually the band leader for that tour. So there you go.
Yeah.
Stevie Ray Vaughan contributed guitar solos to 6 songs. How about that? Not because I thought whatchamacallit played more guitars on it. He was to join the tour, but did not. He was. It says he was to join the tour to please American audiences. So Stevie Ray Vaughan had a notoriety already. Like he had his MTV video.
But I thought David Bowie kind of was responsible for quote unquote discovering him.
Sidetracking here. What's Stevie Ray Vaughan's first big hit? Well, Can't Stand the Weather? Is it?
I could hear it. You know, it's that riff.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought the story was that.
Let's not go Les Claypool on this. Okay?
No, I know, but I thought the story was that he's at like the Montreux Jazz Festival or some kind of thing like that, and sees Stevie Ray Vaughan in Double Trouble, and is like, "Who are these guys? I'm getting them on there."
But I think Stevie Ray Vaughan had an album out and was like had MTV play already. Like I certainly did not hear about Stevie Ray Vaughan because David Bowie. Because he's not even in the video, right? It's Bowie playing along.
It was actually, I agree. It was more of a.
It was like Eddie Van Halen played
playing
on
with Eddie Van Halen.
No.
I'm sorry, with David Bowie. You know,
I'm going to disagree with that. I cannot show any proof, but by next episode I'll find out.
Okay, well, let me. Go ahead.
I thought was that, like you said, I'm sure him and his band were playing, and they were out. It's the equivalent of like. They weren't a major label act, and he wasn't nationally known until Bowie, quote unquote, discovers him or gets him on his record, and then
I think you're overstating that.
I could be. I mean,
so
I'm just going on record to say that.
Well, here's the line right here: Stevie Ray Vaughan, who played 6 solos on Let's Dance, who was up and coming, was to join the tour to please American audiences. So he was known quantity. But it says, Vaughan and Bowie show up to join the rehearsals being led by Carlos Alomar. But Vaughan showed up with a cocaine habit, a hard partying wife, and an entourage looking for easy access to drugs. Given that Bowie himself had moved to Berlin to clean up, Bowie and Vaughan's management failed to come to an agreement on how to temper his
oh my God. Yeah.
And Vaughan was pulled from the tour.
Yeah. Okay.
So there you go.
All right.
Vaughan's replacement, Earl Slick, spent the next few days in a hotel room learning all 31 songs from the set. But
you know, what you just quoted there is, you know, up and coming is what I'm going with to say that, you know, the proof.
Okay, you go with, but I mean, he was up and coming, so there was something that was up and coming.
Sure.
Like it wasn't like, oh, we're gonna sign this guy who Bowie pulled out of. Bowie's always been very good. Bowie's timing has always been great, but he's never been first.
Okay.
Like never been first.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
So like, you know, with Devo and all that. I mean, give us some examples.
True.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
Like, you know, he was not the first glam rocker. He was not the first, you know, person to incorporate, you know, theatrics into his performances. He was good at stealing, sort of like he put like kabuki into his, you know, he would steal from other cultures, and you know.
So he's like Madonna, where he knows enough to recognize.
Well, that's Madonna's, you know, model. Yeah.
I know, but Bowie's he's in tune enough with what's going on in the clubs to pick out stuff that's like, that's pretty cool. I'm gonna do that, and Bowie's Bowie, and that becomes huge.
It's like there's the whole story about Bowie and Eno wanting to produce Devo, like they were on that right away, or there's the famous story of them driving they're at the back of a limo, and Eno's playing I Feel Love by Giorgio Moroder, the first sort of synth stuff, going like, this is the future of music, we got to do this, and then they go and they make Low, and you know, so it's it's kind of like hearing things and chasing them. Yeah.
So who's responsible for Devo then, for really finding Devo?
Really, it was just Devo, grinding it out and getting a deal with Warner. And but like it's funny, Eno, Bowie. A lot of people showed up to see Devo at like Max's and CBGB's. Like the word got out fast, because you think about, if you saw Devo, you would be talking about them the next day.
Yeah. And we're talking like 76, 75?
Yeah, 75, 76, yeah. Right, because they formed pretty soon after the Kent State, right?
Yeah.
Which is 70, right?
Yeah.
So they slowly evolve into, filmmakers or whatever. So that's got to be
right.
They're probably getting out of Ohio like 74, 75. Yeah.
May 4, 1970. They're Akron, Ohio. Kent is in Kent, Ohio. In Akron, that's a pretty liberal, like little town and stuff like that. Did they play a lot of shows around town?
So they talk about how they had a hard time they would lie that they were doing covers.
Gotcha.
And play their set and then go the regular event of,
that's great.
Of, you know what?
So they break in like
anymore.
Max's, like really New York City breaks them.
Oh yeah, so they like would get in their van and drive, play Max's and drive back. It was like as often as they could. Like that was where they really played. Like there really wasn't much of a Cleveland scene even. Like there was great bands out of Cleveland. There was Rocket from the Tombs, who became Air Para Ubu and the Dead Boys, and like even the Pretenders aren't from there. Like she leaves, right? She goes to London. So
she was there at Kent State,
right?
The Zelig of music. But I to put it into context, I mean, if these guys are playing in clubs in the city like CBGB's or Max's, and in 75 or even 76, like that, the underground and art scene that must have spread like what? Like you gotta see it, because it is so far out there. Not even like, you can't even say that they're like in the same vein as the Ramones, and it's like, okay, the Ramones, it's cool and it's new, but it's still roots in the 3-chord in a rock and roll vein, just peeling it back to the garage rock 60s. Devo gets out there, their look and their sound, I mean, that had to be, people had to been like, what the heck?
Yeah, well, that's like, and it caused a lot of that, like, no, like this is crazy. Like there was a lot of
it's
anger.
Not even music.
What is
They're
What's
not even
the B-52's first single?
52 Girls in Rock Lobster.
What year is it?
77, if not 78.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering if it was 78.
They released it themselves. In 79 is when the first album comes out. Like they get signed pretty quickly too. But they're another one. They're playing parties in Athens and then driving up and playing like Mud Club and Danceteria.
But they got to be like, I mean, they're 76, right? They got to be in Athens playing those parties and club, right?
I think they put out at like, it's not that much, because a lot of this is inspired by what's going on at CB's in 76, 70. Even like Michael Stipe talks about like subscribing to the Village Voice and knowing enough to go like the day it comes out, buying Patti Smith's album in 1975. So like they're aware of something like that. That's like the first thing, the really only television and the Ramones start playing there in like 74, but it really doesn't start getting written about till like 75. And it's like most people have read about it than heard any of the music, because there's like no one's recording it, But
the way to find out about that kind of scene would have been like through the Village Voice. It
was kind of like there was a couple national magazines, like Cream would mention it a little. There was a magazine out of New York called Rock Scene that was very photocentric and gossipy, and it would be pictures of like the New York Dolls and the Ramones, and so people would see it. And then you also go, but the reason the way sort of it kind of happens bigger in London first is Malcolm McLaren is in New York managing the New York Dolls and hanging out with Richard Hell, and steals the ripped t-shirts and safety pins, and then does fashion back in London, and sort of starts a whole scene and builds the Sex Pistols around that.
How does he get involved with that band in New York? Like, how does he? Do you know that story?
McLaren?
Yeah. How does he become the manager?
I don't know how he
Dolls?
ends up in New York, because remember the Dolls record is out in 73, 74.
Like, that's really early.
And so I don't think he's involved with them till like they had put out 2 albums and they were going nowhere, and he dresses them in red leather and puts a big red hammer and sickle behind them, and that they're a communist band, and that's like their last hurrah, and that's like 76.
Oh, okay.
But I don't. But it's a good question. I don't know why he goes to New York. I don't know if it's fashion there and he stumbles across this, or he goes there because he's read about what's going on, or whatever with the doll scene. Or
when does Debbie Harry's when does Blondie's first record come out? When are they an entity? Are they because she sexes it all up too, and that was a huge asset to that scene.
So. I mean, they're like,
she's brilliant. Don't get me wrong, but clearly they played up. That was played up. She played it up.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But so it goes. There are like sort of cabaret scenes, and she has a group that she's in called Wind in the Willows, and it's like 3 women singing at the front, and at some point Chris Stein is like the guitar player in it. I don't know if and it kind of breaks up, and they put together this band that becomes Blondie, and with almost like universally, they're playing. They're one of the earlier CB bands, maybe, but not before Talking Heads or whatever. Like they're probably don't play there for the first time till 75, maybe 74. But they're everyone thinks they are the band with the least promise. Like they're not particularly interesting. Like they're playing kind of 60s pop songs and not very well, and the drummer's good, and she's got a good voice, but
and it's not fair to say that she's just so good looking that she can't be taken seriously, because they're accepting they're freaks.
I've never heard anybody say outside of the she was incredibly good looking, and she had a good voice, but I never heard anybody
heard that before somewhere along the line.
Well, the story is the band got its name because it's like, every construction worker calls me, "Hey, Blondie," every time I walk down the street, right? And then there's the kind of tie-in with the the 1940s, 50s cartoon,
She also works at the Playboy Club in the city.
That was before. That was before all that. That was like the late 60s. Right? She's from Hawthorne.
Yes,
that's
she's a local.
But the way you say it too. She's from Hawthorne. It's not Hawthorne. It's Hawthorne.
Well, I can't hide my roots. Can't hide my roots.
In their latest box set, though, it's rarities from 74 to 82. So they start doing demos in like 74.
Yeah. So that maybe, but I don't even know if maybe that's when they get the name or whatever. But so
I think the name came like, you're pretty dead on with the story. The name comes a little later. They're whatever they were called, and then it becomes with Blondie or Blondie.
The first 2 records have some nice songs on it. But it's really not until you get to Parallel Lines to they have a producer that sort of like drives them real hard and cleans it all up, and it kills. That record's pretty perfect all the way through.
And I can't recall, is Clem Burke in that early, or he gets in when the recording starts?
He's on every record, right? He gets a lot of writing credits too.
Yeah, we love him. He's a great drummer.
Yeah, he's
awesome.
Totally great.
Yeah, and actually, speaking of which, I heard Chris Stein. I didn't realize he hasn't played with the band for like 6 years or something like that. And between his health issues are coming back. He has prostate cancer. He has like blood disease, whatever. So he's saying like, I think I played my last show. He's like, I've toured for 50 years. I got it out of my system. So, but he's still a creative, part of the band for sure. Yeah. But I mean, I don't know if he actually plays. So, but
that was a love story. I always enjoyed that one too. The Debbie Harry
they're such
story.
Good friends, you know what I mean? That they really stuck it out. Like, they broke up, and she stood by him when he got sick, and it's some sort of
Once again,
news, but
if you're a Broadway producer listening out there, I think you just hit on another musical here.
Well,
musical.
You will now at this point, right? They have all these different ones. You could do the story of Blondie or the story of Chris and Debbie.
Yeah, there you go. I'm buying the rights.
Yeah.
I'm calling it first.
Right, but yeah, well, the only thing, it's like, right, they who knows? For all we know, they're working on it. It seems like
no. I said it first. It has to come out later. Yeah,
I know, but at the same, yeah.
I don't doubt it. In the next 10 years, something like that'll come out.
Because at this point, right, it's like there was a Bob Dylan one, there's a Neil Diamond one,
yeah, go down the list.
There's a Go-Go's one. There is, right. It's they're kind of right in the wheelhouse to get the housewives out as well
totally.
as like and have some critical acclaim.
Yeah.
That's what kind of worked about the show last night too. It's like I was thinking of like, boy, this is really kind of a little insider, but at the same time, it is friggin' Fleetwood Mac, right? You can't say Fleetwood Mac though. That's right. It's
that
would get the housewives out.
Right. It's loosely veiled cover of Fleetwood Mac. But this, what I'm thinking has to be Chris and Debbie.
Yeah. Well,
Deborah.
Well, Chris, you and Deb should do the show, and then license the Blondie's music.
That's how the lawyers will get me. They'll be like, "No, you weren't talking about."
Yeah.
You weren't talking about Blondie. You were talking about your friend.
Talking about our Chris and Deb, not that Chris and Deb.
I think Ray had a funny story about like he went to the University of Bath. I can't remember where he was, over in England doing an exchange student thing for a semester or whatever. So he went over to Britain. He was in London and he gets onto the London subway and Debbie Harry gets on at some point. And she sits down and that's 85-ish, I'm going to say that Ray is there. And she's unrecognizable to most Londoners at that point. And she sits down and Ray starts humming Die Young, Stay Pretty, and she looks up at him. And he kind of mouths to her that he's from Franklin Lakes. And she's just like, well, if you shut up, just come over here and sit by me. And then they just sat there and talked about Clixies and shit like that.
Nice.
Back, the Jersey stuff, and she was like, cool.
I get it. Yeah. Wow. The fact that she knows Clixies is pretty awesome.
They were old timing,
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. I one time there was a documentary about rock photographers, and she was at the screening, and I ended up on an elevator with her and Bob Gruen, all of the rock photographers.
Oh shit.
And someone says
Bob Gruen, of course, Tony took the famous John Lennon, rooftop shots with the New York t-shirt.
City. Yeah. And so I'm in the elevator
amongst a million more.
The famous,
that almost sells him short by saying that.
Yeah,
those are iconic
all of the famous
photos.
New York pictures of Kiss he did. And all the way to the end, he was.
Who's in this elevator?
So it's Bob Gruen, Mick, the guy who did the movie, who did all of Bowie's photographers, Mick Rock, right? Me, my wife Joanna, and Debbie Harry, and a couple other photographers. Right?
This is recent then.
Well, this is pre-pandemic. Oh, yeah. This is
within
2015,
right.
2016. It's the movie's on Netflix, and it's called.
I gotta. How did you get there? How are you on it?
Hold on, let him finish the story. Then he can tell the backstory.
Was one of the producers of the documentary. Well, it's not. It's a documentary about Mick Rock, right? And so when it was done at so the screening was at. Screening room, and Debbie's there, and so we're on the elevator, and someone goes, it's like, so Debbie, is this, and she's like, you're on this elevator with all these elevators, all of these photographers, and she's like, well, it's kind of a dream and a nightmare. So
that's some story.
Yeah.
Now, I was going to ask. Now, in in your line of work, if it's like how mine is, like you can't, you know, you're not asking for autographs. You're keeping your mouth shut. You're kind of. This is a non.
I was not a participant. I was, it was an elevator, so I was damn, close to the action. But it was. I just laughed with everybody.
Yeah.
Pretty funny.
You didn't. You didn't throw out some witty comment to get them all chuckled. So you know.
She lives in London Terrace. We could go knock on her door if you want.
I know. I mean,
it's not a crazy question, though, John. I mean, it's just like, how did you just happen to be stepping onto the elevator? That's all. Like,
the screening.
You're at a screening now. I get it, but like at the same time, you're like, how are you there? With these. Everybody's a photographer or the subject of the photographer.
Guy I work with was one of the producers and invited me to the screening, the premiere. So, and it was
but John's Chris's point is like, of all the other people that were there to step on
how important I think I am.
No, we know. It's more how lucky you are that like, how is it that you stepped into the elevator with all those people and not waited for had to wait for the next one?
It wasn't. The crowd was not that big.
Oh,
It was. I mean, it was not like planned. Like, I'm waiting for the elevator, and there's like I saw this great interview with so Debbie will show up to help promote Chris Stein's photography. He took a lot of pictures during that period or whatever. So I mean, she might be in like the top 5 of most frequent celebrities I've seen.
I was going to say, we used to see her around all the time in the city.
Yeah. She doesn't hide.
Yep.
No.
That's great.
And yet you won't approach Gibby. So whatever, dude.
I moved into Gibby's neighborhood.
I'm afraid. Oh.
Yeah. I feel like I have more in common with Debbie Harry than Gibby Haynes, though.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, he's like a Texas acid head.
I know, but I think when you talk about approachability for a podcast or for a conversation,
they're both approachable.
Yeah.
But
well, you come in there and say, "Hey, I'm from Franklin Lakes," or and
Ray's move was far more aggressive than I would ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that one of the times I met her,
I was in a hotel. I was in a hotel lobby.
That's the way he's told the story.
And I was in a hotel lobby in Vienna.
There you go. That's a great start.
2000 to the 2000s, and there's Patti Smith waiting to get, like, she's obviously a little annoyed because her room's not ready.
Again, with the Patti Smith stories,
right? And so you asked, this is my so that was one of the few times I sort of like when I'm like, hey Patty, I just saw you recently at this Dylan tribute in Lincoln Center and blah blah, and that was kind of like, oh, you saw me, like the fact that I saw her there seemed to relax her a little, but it was kind of like it was just sort of like, this is not the best. I'm not in the best of moods right now because I'm standing around in this lobby. And I'm like, I just want to go. Like, I don't know her back, but I'm like, oh, and you're performing in the. She's like, yeah, I'm doing this thing over at the Vienna Opera House and blah blah blah. And I'm like, I just wanted to say hi, and I walked away. So it was like, but it was like, it still felt like, did I need to do that? So
you have some humility, and I appreciate that you can tell a story where you show that.
Well, now, the fact that you keep saying that I got on Debbie Harry's elevator when Debbie Harry got on my elevator.
Wow. Well, that's more like it. Okay, now we're getting to it.
You're from Franklin Lakes. That's right. She's from Hawthorne. Now I get it. Now I get it.
You were coming down. You were coming up from the basement, and they, and the doors opened up, and everyone stepped on, and you're like, I'm staying to ride this out. It's like, oh, cool. That kind of thing. All right, now that makes more sense.
There you go.
I thought you were all standing outside waiting for the doors to open, and then you all got on, and it was like...
I said it was okay to get on, yes.
Yeah. Oh, I would have been like, no, this is just for VIPs only.
No, it was just one of those moments where you kind of, it kind of just came together, and all of a sudden I realized, wow, I've probably thumbed through 1 million issues of Cream and Circus magazine with these photographers' pictures in them.
Yeah.
Of Debbie Harry.
Of Deborah Harry. I think I would have brought that up on the 10-second elevator run.
But it was like, it was in the air, and that's why the conversation that came up. Okay, it wasn't like everyone was quiet or like they all knew her. It all,
Yeah.
and the conversation flowed without me having to juice it.
Were you dressed in like a blue suit and a hat on? Maybe they assumed you were like the elevator operator.
Yeah, no, that's exactly. I actually had
the mate tag.
I had a name tag. That was
exactly.
Yeah.
Right. The first thing,
and I had the first
thing out of John's mouth was, "Which floor, everybody?"
Yeah. This is Carlton, your doorman.
Yeah. Second floor, ladies formal wear. Third floor, sporting goods.
Diane Dane, I had a thing with you. Yeah, cute kid.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good story to stick around.
Yeah. Well, so just to tie it back around and maybe bring this thing to an end. So I have one eye on the screen, the other eye going like, I gotta find out if Tony's got me on the Stevie Ray Vaughan thing. Stevie Ray Vaughan's first album came out in 1983, which is the same time as this. So they but the record was out already.
What's the hit?
Which one?
What's the hit?
Well, hold on. Which record was out already?
Jim is already told the hit, but like he's answered me, but I can't hear him.
Texas Flood is the album.
Texas Flood
is the album. And Pride and Joy.
Pride and Joy.
There it is.
But John, I'm confused. So has he recorded with Bowie first, then his album? This album comes out?
His album's out, then he records with Bowie. So they actually. So as I do the pure linear thing here of what's going, his background, it does reference this Bowie discovery story, but for some reason he has an album out already. But so that's why I just think it's, people like to tell it that way. But,
okay. That's the story that the press gets.
But it's not right. It's like you in a heartbeat. I would like, oh, my new album's out. I have a new single. It's at radio. It's doing really well. David Bowie quote. Right, you're gonna. So it says. So he's been playing with that trio since 1978.
Yeah,
and then, but he was at Montreux Jazz in '82 when Bowie sees him.
That's the story I'm talking about.
So he's signed. It looks like he's signed, and so Vaughan playing blues and guitar on Let's Dance before being discovered by John Hammond, who's interested. So John Hammond. It's like his last signing is Stevie Ray Vaughan. John Hammond, who signed, Billie Holiday, Bob Dylan, Bruce Springsteen, Stevie Ray Vaughan.
But let's put it into context. When they, and I'm sure this is the same thing with what's his face from Kiss saying he discovered Van Halen. Like he
paid for their demos at least.
Yeah, but like. Stevie Ray Vaughan and Double Trouble, they're touring, they're playing small clubs, they're doing the grind, they're out for many years, like just playing the clubs. They did get booked
at Montreux Jazz Festival,
and then so that's also pretty big to be there to begin with, and then that's where Bowie sees him, and it's like, well, then I'm going to take him and make him like a household name.
So this is the Wikipedia, right? So it's who knows. Says Bowie sees him in '82. He contacted him for a studio gig that resulted in Vaughan playing on Let's Dance, and then it does say before being discovered, but that's wrong because unless Let's Dance was recorded that much earlier, but
John, didn't you think to a certain degree that it was astonishing that a guy like that was going to become a huge superstar? Because even Pride and Joy, if you had stuck that on side 2 of LaGrange by ZZ Top, it would that Stevie Ray Vaughan would he's a great player amongst so many great players that it's almost hard to believe in 1983 when so many other things are starting to happen that sort of throwback element still has it came to the fore. They were huge hit songs.
But you got to remember his brother is Jimmy Vaughan from the Fabulous Thunderbirds, who people on a regular basis say that Jimmy might be the better guitar player.
But
I've never heard people say that. I've heard him say Brad Whitford's better than Joe Perry, but I have not heard that Jimmy's better than Stevie Ray.
I was going to say,
might like his music, but that's like people say I don't know, like B.B. King. When I listen
Simon
to B.B.
Townsend's
King
better than
play,
Pete
I'm
Townsend?
like, okay, he's great. He's got great tone, but it doesn't have the flash that, like there's a whole subtleness thing going on. So is that the Jimmy Vaughn magic, that eludes me? I don't know.
I think you're confused. I think I think if you went and you watched Jimmy Vaughn play, it would be like it's
I'm
more.
sure he's great.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But but that's the whole point too. It's just like, how many guys have you seen in Jim Middle on a Friday night they're killing it?
Well, I think so. If you once again, I don't think being an amazing talent is necessarily equivalent to great success. I think.
Agreed.
So what I would say is it's right, and it's like, and it's so subjective of better or whatever. I was just saying what I've heard people say that, quote, he's the better guitar player. But the thing that I think Stevie Ray Vaughan makes happen is he takes that Texas blues thing and puts Jimi Hendrix blues in it. Mm-hmm. That's what and made him classic rock and therefore palatable classic rock.
We just said Pride and Joy is his first song, and it's just like, and when you think of Pride and Joy, you're just like, how many times have you heard that riff?
Yeah.
I mean, it's.
But you know what I mean? But it's like there is in the same way, like Bob Marley is the person that makes reggae huge because he has a producer that brings in. It's like, who your audience is? It's the classic rock audience. So you're gonna put more of those elements, emphasize more of that. You're gonna bring Stevie Ray Vaughan. Where I'm conscious, he's obviously a huge Hendrix fan. Mm-hmm. Which is something as a classic rock background. I listen to Zeppelin albums. I listen to these guys. Wow, because there's something I think strange about the blues is no one criticizes it except they're saying it's like all the songs sound the same. Is like the stupid thing someone says, but people respect it, and it's like, oh, it's the roots of all this music and blah blah. So you almost like it's almost like it has respect, but it's not. I'm not putting it on all the time, and it's you think about it's like these Japanese businessmen, like at a blues club in Japan or Tokyo, that like in the same way, like jazz guys had to go to France because it was just sort of like following the money. Like that's what I think blues is kind of this. It was like a dead art but they found the money where these people who sort of worshipped it, whatever. And I think like there's Texas blues guys like these guys, and occasionally like people want to like it, but it's not packaged properly. And Stevie Ray Vaughan was one of those people where it's like, bam, packed right. And I would argue that part of the White Stripes thing was like, Jack White's whole thing was, I'm going to make blues that sounds good to a contemporary, which essentially like even some of its blues covers, right? So that's where I think
stripped down
the difference is. It's right. He's not pure. And he pulls in those envelopes, those people. He's a great guitar player in the story, but
it's funny because I've also heard like guys that I've played with before that are really amazing blues players and stuff like that. There's one guy I can think of that was in like a Castaway band. It was a dad night band kind of thing, and he was a fabulous player, and he could never wrap his head around that exact thing that you just said about Jack White, like being more of a contemporary blues thing. He's like, he can't play, like he's just kind of jacking off at it. Like it's not really that good. And it's just like,
but it does something to you. You connect it, you understand it. You know what I mean? It's like I think it's rocking, whether or not it's complicated or pure or hard. Like that's at the end of the day, it's like
I have not been as I really like the rawness of the White Stripes of just like the 2-piece kind of thing is great. Mm-hmm. The thing with the Edge and Jimmy Page,
it might get loud, yeah.
There's a segment where he does "I Fought Piranhas" in it and stuff like that. It just amazes me, know. And it's like it's punk rock blues. It's everything that John Spencer wanted to be. It's fucking unbelievable.
But it's funny you bring that move because I remember watching, right? It's like Edge shows his technique and blah blah, and then Jimmy Page teaches them Kashmir, and then he and then he just goes, Dun, 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 dun. It's like
I have
really
a stadium anthem.
It shows him like outside, nailing. He puts together like a pickup onto a 2x4.
Yeah,
and
but see, that's what's funny. That movie, he totally plays to the camera like, I'm gonna be like the barefoot boy in the like, you're a kid upholsterer from Detroit, it's like he's driving nails to show, and it's like, and they have that flashback to like the young kid in black and white, like supposed to be like a little Jack
It's
White.
funny because he's a little choked up on the hammer and stuff like that. You're like, you've never swung the hammer before.
Well, apparently he can upholster his furniture, and that's why all of the gear looked great. He would like redo the screens, and like everything had to be red, black, or white.
That's funny.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
So now you're dissing him about his carpentry skills, the way those blues players are dissing him.
Like,
that he's not legitimate.
Just hammering in a nail on a 2x4, and I was like,
no,
I thought he was a little choked up on it. That's all.
He comes from a working class family. He worked those jobs.
And he's like the youngest of like a big family. Like he's like the seventh kid or something like that. Yeah. Of the seventh
son.
Wow.
And I was going to just add in there a couple things about Stevie Ray Vaughan is that if he's basically playing like Albert King style, taking all those notes. But I think what, like to Chris's point, blues players is like a dime a dozen, but maybe that's what Bowie does, right? He realizes like he's got something, like he's got this flash, or he's got this like Hendrix quality to him. Boom! But that combination, he explodes in the classic.
Remember, but that's the whole thing too. That's right. You probably could find a great player any night in a city,
any given big city.
But there's just that charisma, or it clicks with you, and then you see that, and then it doesn't get to the record. Like, how many bands do we love? Like, like a really different comparison, but the Flatones, like none of their records are as good as seeing them live. Like it's like that, as my old boss used to say, so many bands are awesome on that 2-beer buzz. It's like, it's all of a sudden like magic's happening. How do you get that onto a record? It's almost impossible.
Yeah. What was the band you said? It felt like you cut out there. What band did you say?
The Fleshtones.
The Fleshtones, okay.
Like the Fleshtones, it's like so many fun nights seeing them, and in retrospect, like their records, like their first couple records are pretty great, but it's still not. It's just it's so different.
And I bet too, like Stevie Ray Vaughan, he's doing it behind his back. He's doing swinging around, doing it with his teeth. He's just
there's other amazing things happening there where it's just like watching a blues bass player. So, when I started playing more seriously on the bass and stuff like that, even doing like in some of the bands that I was playing, it's dad night bands, were playing, like I was learning things like Pride and Joy and stuff like that. That bass player has got a backlog of 12-bar bass lines that it's inexhaustible. It's like, and I'm like, wow, I'm struggling with those 6 or 7 that I know, and it's like this guy does, can just pull them out like and all of them are, it's all the same to me. Don't get me wrong. That's why I don't drop a needle on it all the time, but I still respect, like John was saying, it's like you still respect what it is. You still are just like, God, these guys are killing it, because they're swinging in the pocket at times, and you're just like, you're like, got it,
But how often have you found that had that uncomfortable thing where you go and you're like at a bar somewhere and we're gonna do the blues thing, and you're oh, please don't. Yes, you know that the 3 chords, and you're playing like, and it's you know what I mean? It's like there's almost nothing worse than bad blues playing, because everyone can try it. Like it's all essentially all magic.
I mean, we did it in college. Doug and myself and Paul, like we went up like on a college stage at Ramapo College. In their auditorium, and we called ourselves Blatantly Mediocre, and we played like a blues and E kind of thing, just on that premise that you just mentioned, where it was just like, here we go, and Paul and Doug are going to be able to go. So You know,
did people love it?
We waited until like we literally got booed off the stage. You know, like that's enough because it was a talent show or something talent night.
You know, it's
like that's
enough.
What
would get you kicked off quickly. You know, so it's worse. Even though it's probably even more common now is when you see people who like I could play reggae music, it's just like no, please don't. Please don't.
Yeah.
That's always been painful.
Yeah, it has. Like, but it's like, but at the same time, it's like, oh, but it's easy. Well, yeah, but no, it's not.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. There's subtle.
It's so straightforward.
Well, it was just like walking down the street in the cities, and you know, like it didn't matter if you were East Coast, West Coast, and just seeing that guy, you know, busking, you know, Redemption song, and you're just like, just stop it, dude. Like, stop now.
Yeah. Oh, gosh.
That's a great point to, bring it around.
Yeah, great point.
To end it on the Redemption song rebuttal. Every guy in the.
Well, we didn't get to the Red and the Blue Beatle releases.
Yeah, we didn't.
And I was kind of like, wait, from what I've been hearing, like I like it. There's been a little blowback as far as saying there's too much separation. But
I listened to both the Atmos mix as well as like the new, just the straight up stereo mix, and I have to say the stereo mixes are fantastic. They really I find that why am I forgetting the word? What are they called? I just said it. The
atmosphere?
The atmosphere. Atmos. That's what's wrong.
Okay.
Mixes they're weird and stuff, but
was that a secondary byproduct of the mixes that Giles Martin did? Like, how was that?
Yeah.
done?
So I guess maybe 2 or 3 years now, Apple's been pushing this Atmos mix, which is, it's sort of an extra dimension, because now it's in a stereo headphone, but you have a more deeper dimension of stuff. And those, they sound like it's to a certain extent, listening to them, I find it's like, wow, that, like, I was just listening to Hey Jude, and it's like, the piano's not that good, and the acoustic guitar is a little, and Ringo's kind of like it's almost like it starts turning it into like, now, oh yes, it's flour and eggs, and it's like
breaking it down to the ingredients.
Yeah, and it's just it's a little. I mean, it's
final result.
It almost feels like it's unmixed rather than more mixed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. But the stereo mix, like particular. So what I've actually, one of the things I discovered too is I really could not listen to anything from 1967. Like I'm in one of those state of minds where like, sorry, this is just over the top. I can't listen to all. There's just, please. I listened to the Red album. Fantastic. Like, sounds great. Like real stereo mixes of everything. George is like great. Like he's like this seasoning through the whole thing, and I start listening. I hit the record starts with like Strawberry Fields Forever, the blue record, and I'm like, okay, I got to jump to Lady Madonna. I just can't listen to that period right now. It's just it's too much for me. It seems syrupy, and and I will, and in 6 months from now, my mind will be blown about how friggin' amazing it is. But
I'm sure.
But because I started in on A Day in a Life, and it was like, wow, this.
I've been holding off on, literally holding off on I Am the Walrus on purpose, just because I wanted to kind of digest that too at the right moment. You know, so it's like,
it was a little too much. It's like, I'm not ready to take this ride yet. Like I got like 10 minutes. I don't have whereas when Paul was talking about, I just listened to both the Red and like I've heard the songs differently than ever. I put on the Red and on my commute home, and it just made me so happy. It was just like there was so much fun. Like it's a band playing live, a little bit of overdub here, and it's just like the energy just made me feel so great. Like this is so, like it was just really great. I'm not ready for the blue. Like that's too serious, man. Nom's coming.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now we can definitely bring it around. Now that you've dropped that last button.
But
we'll talk about Ringo's drums next time.
Yeah. So, but Chris, dig into them deep, and I want to hear your take on them. For sure.
We'll do.
You've been listening to The Beatdown. The Beatdown is available on Apple, Google, Castbox, and Spreaker. Subscribe to us and know when a new episode is available. If you have something to say or have a suggestion of music or a band that you're in, hit us up on Facebook at The Beatdown Music Podcast at gmail.com. And as always, like us on Facebook. We appreciate it. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you soon.
See ya.